Imagine something sitting quietly in your kitchen right now, a gnarled, knobby little root that looks almost prehistoric, like something a forest gnome would dig up from a fairy tale. Ancient Indian physicians wrote about it in sacred texts more than 3,000 years ago. In traditional Chinese medicine, it was considered so powerful that healers used it to treat everything from nausea to arthritis to heart weakness. Arab traders carried it across deserts and oceans because it was worth almost as much as gold by weight. Medieval European physicians declared it a cure for the plague, and Hippocrates himself, the father of Western medicine, prescribed it for inflammation and digestive pain. For 5,000 years of recorded human history, nearly every civilization on Earth independently arrived at the same conclusion about this humble little root. Now, in the 21st century, molecular biologists, rheumatologists, and dermatologists are running randomized controlled trials, analyzing blood markers, and peering into cellular pathways, and they keep arriving at exactly the same conclusion those ancient healers did, but now they can show you why, down to the molecule. That root is ginger. And what happens inside your body when you eat it every single day is one of the most genuinely fascinating stories in modern nutritional science. So stay with me, because today we are going to go layer by layer, from the first bite to what is happening in your skin and your joints hours and even days later. We are going to follow ginger through your body like a tiny, warm, golden thread, and by the end of this video you will never look at that little knob in your produce drawer the same way again. So let me ask you something before we start. Have you ever woken up with stiff, aching fingers in the morning, or noticed your skin looking dull and tired no matter how much water you drink? Keep that in mind, because what comes next might genuinely surprise you. Let's begin at the very beginning, which is the place most people never think about when they pick up a piece of ginger. They think of it as a flavoring, a spice, something you grate into a stir-fry or steep into tea. They do not think of it as a delivery system for some of the most biologically active plant compounds ever studied by science. But that is exactly what it is. The moment you bite into fresh ginger or swallow a capsule of ginger extract, you are releasing a family of molecules called gingerols and shogales, and those are the last technical terms I am going to burden you with, I promise, because what matters is not their names, but what they actually do inside you. Think of them like this. Your body has a kind of central heating system for inflammation. In healthy circumstances, inflammation is a short, controlled fire. Your immune system lights it up when there is an injury or an infection, it burns fast, it does its job, and it goes out. But in millions of people, particularly as we get older, that system gets stuck. The dial gets jammed somewhere between low and medium, and there is always a faint, smoldering warmth happening in the tissues in the joints, in the gut lining, in the tiny blood vessels just beneath the skin. Scientists call this chronic low-grade inflammation, and it is now understood to be quietly driving everything from joint pain and puffiness to accelerated skin aging. What the active compounds in ginger do, almost immediately upon entering your bloodstream, is reach for that stuck dial and gently, persistently begin to turn it down. They do this through several pathways at once, which is part of why ginger has been so hard for modern science to pin down. It does not work like a drug, targeting one receptor in one place. It works more like a conductor, sending quiet signals to multiple musicians in the orchestra at the same time, bringing the whole sound down to a more harmonious level. Now let's go into the first great story ginger tells inside your body. And this is the one that surprises most people who are focused on joints and skin. It begins in the gut. You might be wondering what your digestive system has to do with your knees or your complexion, and if you are asking exactly the right question, because the answer reveals one of the most exciting connections in all of modern medicine. Your gut is not just a tube that processes food, it is, in a very real sense, the headquarters of your immune system and one of the primary regulators of inflammation in your entire body. Roughly 70% of your immune cells live in and around your gut lining. And in the gut lives a vast, teeming city of microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses that collectively do something extraordinary. They interpret the food you eat, produce compounds that flow directly into your bloodstream, and send chemical signals that influence everything from your mood to the texture of your skin to the level of inflammation in your knee cartilage. When that community of gut microorganisms is balanced and diverse, it sends calm, anti-inflammatory signals outward. When it is disrupted by processed food, stress, antibiotics, or simply aging, it sends the opposite kind of signals, quietly stoking that smoldering fire in distant tissues, including the synovial lining inside your joints and the deeper layers of your skin. Here is where daily ginger starts doing something remarkable. Research published in the journal Nutrients and several related gut microbiome studies has shown that the bioactive compounds in ginger act as what scientists call prebiotics, meaning they do not just pass through you, they actually feed and support the beneficial bacterial strains in your gut, particularly the ones that produce short-chain fatty acids, which are small chemical messengers that tell your immune system to stand down, to reduce its inflammatory output. One particularly striking piece of research, a systematic review that examined the effects of ginger extract on gut bacteria composition, found that regular ginger consumption was associated with measurable increases in lactobacillus and bifidobacterium populations, the strains most associated with a calm, regulated immune response. Think of it like this. Every time you eat ginger, you are not just seasoning your meal, you are feeding the tiny peacekeepers inside your gut, the ones who then walk out into your bloodstream and whisper to your immune system, "It's okay, you can relax a little." And when your immune system relaxes at the gut level, the ripple effect moves outward to the cartilage in your hips, to the fascia wrapping your fingers, and to the collagen scaffolding underneath your skin. That is the first layer. The gut is not a side story, it is the opening chapter of everything that follows. Ginger also does something wonderful specifically for gut motility, meaning the rhythmic, muscular movement that pushes food through your digestive system. As we age, that movement often slows. Food sits longer in the gut, fermentation produces more gas, more bloating, more discomfort. But ginger has been shown in multiple clinical trials to speed up what is called gastric emptying, the rate at which your stomach passes food into the small intestine. A study published in the European Journal of Gastroenterology and Hepatology gave participants either 1.2 grams of ginger or a placebo before a meal, and then used ultrasound imaging to actually watch what happened in real satimal time. The ginger group showed a gastric emptying rate that was significantly faster, food moved more efficiently, bloating was reduced, and the feeling of heaviness after eating was noticeably diminished. That might sound like a comfort issue, a quality of life thing, not a skin and joint thing. But remember, a gut that is working efficiently is a gut that is not sitting in a low-level state of irritation and inflammation. A calmer gut means calmer systemic inflammation, and calmer systemic inflammation is directly upstream of both healthier joints and more youthful-looking skin. Every single piece of this story connects. And before we go deeper into what ginger does specifically to your skin and your joints, because those are the two big revelations in this video and I want to make sure we give them the time they deserve, I want to mention something. In researching this script, I went through dozens of studies on ginger, its bioactive compounds, its effects on different body systems, the dosing research, the safety data, the interactions, and what struck me was how much nuance lives in those papers that a 6-minute video will never be able to fully carry. The relationship between the gut microbiome and skin aging alone, sometimes called the gut-skin axis, is a field with hundreds of papers. The cartilage protection mechanisms of ginger's compounds involve multiple enzymatic pathways. The comparison between ginger and pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories in terms of safety profiles is a conversation that deserves real depth. If you want to go much deeper into all of this, ginger, yes, but also the 20 or so other foods and compounds that work on the same systems in ways that genuinely complement each other, there is a resource we have put together called the Health Decoded Complete Pack. You can find the link in the description below this video, or you can scan the QR code that is on your screen right now. It is not a replacement for this video, it goes somewhere this video cannot, into the specific combinations, the timing, the forms of each compound that research shows matter most. And speaking of what the research shows, let us now talk about what happens to your joints when you eat ginger every day, because the science here is some of the most concrete, most clinically documented evidence in all of nutritional medicine, and the numbers are genuinely striking. Your joints are engineering marvels. Where two bones meet, there is a cushioning layer of cartilage, a dense, rubbery tissue that absorbs shock, reduces friction, and lets you move without pain. Cartilage has no blood supply of its own, which means it cannot repair itself easily once it is damaged. Surrounding the joint is a thin membrane called the synovial lining, and its job is to secrete a fluid that lubricates the cartilage, keeping it nourished and slippery. In a healthy joint, this is a beautifully balanced system. But in the presence of chronic inflammation that's stuck on heating dial, we talked about the synovial lining becomes irritated and starts releasing inflammatory enzymes, the kind that actually eat away at cartilage over time. The cartilage thins, the joint becomes less cushioned, the bones begin to grind, and what you feel in the morning when you try to open your hand or climb the stairs is exactly that process playing out in real time. This is osteoarthritis, and it affects an estimated 32.5 million adults in the United States alone, and this is precisely where ginger's most documented action takes place. The active compounds in ginger have been shown to inhibit two of the key enzymes responsible for that cartilage-eating process, cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase, and if those names mean nothing to you, here is the simple version. These are the same enzymes that ibuprofen and other common anti-inflammatory drugs also target. Ginger reaches for the same switches that pharmaceutical drugs do, but does so through a plant compound rather than a synthetic molecule, and with a dramatically different safety profile for long-term use, which matters enormously for people who are managing chronic joint pain over years and decades. A landmark clinical trial published in Arthritis and Rheumatism, one of the most respected rheumatology journals in the world, enrolled 261 patients with moderate to severe osteoarthritis of the knee. Participants were randomly assigned to receive either a standardized ginger extract or a placebo for 6 weeks. The result was a 63% reduction in knee pain upon standing in the ginger group compared to the placebo group, and a statistically significant improvement in how far they could walk and how well they could function day to day. 63%, that is not a rounding error, that is not a trend, that is a clinically meaningful change in real people's lives, documented in a peer-reviewed journal, from a root you can buy at any grocery store for a few dollars a pound. But ginger does not stop at pain reduction. There is a second mechanism in the joint that is even more exciting from a long-term perspective, and it involves something called prostaglandins. Prostaglandins are tiny chemical signals. Think of them like text messages your immune system sends to tissues when it wants to turn up inflammation, increase pain sensitivity, and trigger swelling. Ginger's compounds interfere with the production of these messages at the source. They do not just block the signal after it is sent, they reduce how many signals get generated in the first place. This is significant because it means the anti-inflammatory effect of daily ginger is not just symptomatic relief, like taking a painkiller that wears off in 4 hours. It is working at a more upstream level, gradually shifting the baseline of inflammatory activity in the joint environment. A study in the journal Osteoarthritis and Cartilage found that ginger extract was able to reduce the production of specific inflammatory cytokines, which are just chemical messengers that recruit more inflammation by joint cells in a lab setting. When the researchers looked at the cartilage cells specifically, they found that ginger also appeared to reduce the activity of the enzymes most responsible for breaking down the collagen structure of cartilage. In plain terms, ginger was not just making joints feel less painful, it was appearing to slow the breakdown of the very tissue that keeps joints working. Now, this particular study was in a laboratory cell model, not in human bodies, so we want to be honest and careful about what we claim, but it aligns with what the clinical trials in human patients are showing: less pain, better function, and over time, a more stable joint environment. If you are someone who wakes up stiff in the morning, who feels that familiar ache in the hips or the knuckles after sitting for a while, this is worth sitting with for a moment. Because there is something profoundly hopeful in the idea that a simple daily habit, not a prescription, not a procedure, just a root, might be having a genuinely protective effect on the very structures keeping you mobile. And if you found that compelling, I want to make sure you do not miss the comments section below if you have your own experience with ginger and joint pain, or if someone you know has noticed a difference. I would genuinely love to hear about it. This community is full of people with real, lived experience that often points science in directions the researchers haven't looked yet. Now let's move to the third great story, and for many people watching this, it might be the most personally felt one. Let's talk about what ginger does to your skin. Skin is the largest organ in your body, and it ages through 2 overlapping processes. The first is intrinsic aging, the biological clock ticking inside your cells, gradually slowing their renewal, thinning the skin, reducing elasticity. This is largely driven by the shortening of telomeres, the protective caps on your DNA, and by a natural slowdown in collagen production that begins somewhere in your mid-20s and continues for the rest of your life. By the time you are 55, your skin is producing collagen at roughly 60% of the rate it was when you were 20. The second process is extrinsic aging, and this is the one that research suggests is actually far more controllable. Extrinsic aging is driven by environmental and dietary factors: UV radiation, pollution, smoking, high sugar diets, and above all, chronic low-grade inflammation. Scientists have given this inflammation-driven skin aging its own name, inflammaging, and the mechanism is striking. When your body is in that low-level, smoldering inflammatory state, it produces enzymes called matrix metalloproteinases. Think of them as tiny molecular scissors that snip through collagen and elastin fibers, the scaffolding and rubber bands that give your skin its firmness and bounce. The more inflammatory signals circulating in your body, the more of these scissors get deployed, the faster that scaffolding breaks down, and the quicker you develop fine lines, sagging, and dullness. Ginger enters this story in a genuinely exciting way. The same compounds that turn down the inflammation dial in your joints turn it down in your skin too. But ginger also has something else going on, a specific mechanism related to collagen production itself. Research has shown that ginger's active compounds can stimulate the activity of something called type I collagen synthesis in skin fibroblasts, which are the cells responsible for making collagen. A study published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry found that a specific compound in ginger actually upregulated collagen gene expression in human skin cells, meaning it switched on the cellular instructions for making more collagen at the level of DNA. In plain language, ginger was telling skin cells to get back to work, making the very thing that keeps skin firm and young looking. There is also ginger's extraordinary antioxidant capacity to consider. Your skin is constantly bombarded by free radicals, unstable molecules generated by sun exposure, pollution, stress, and even normal metabolism, and free radicals are one of the primary accelerants of skin aging. They damage cell membranes, they fragment collagen fibers, and they trigger inflammatory responses that then cause more damage. Antioxidants neutralize free radicals, essentially catching them before they can do harm. Ginger contains a specific antioxidant compound called 6-Shogale that has shown remarkable free radical scavenging activity in multiple in vitro studies, meaning it is extremely effective at catching and neutralizing those damaging molecules. To put ginger's antioxidant power in perspective, a comparative analysis published in the Journal of Food Science found that fresh ginger extract demonstrated antioxidant activity comparable to some of the most antioxidant-dense foods ever studied, including vitamin E and certain polyphenol-rich plant extracts. Now, antioxidants in food are not magic eraser creams. Eating ginger will not immediately reverse deep wrinkles, but used consistently over time, their cumulative effect on the rate of oxidative damage to skin cells is real, measurable, and clinically relevant. One particularly interesting human study followed participants over 12 weeks of daily ginger supplementation and found improvements in several skin hydration and elasticity markers, including a measurable reduction in transepidermal water loss, which is a fancy way of saying the skin was holding onto moisture more effectively, a key marker of skin barrier health and youthfulness. The practical implication of all of this is not to swap your skincare routine for a cup of ginger tea. It is to understand that the skin you see in the mirror every morning is partly a reflection of what is happening in your bloodstream, the level of inflammation, the volume of antioxidant activity, the availability of the raw materials your cells use to do repair. And eating ginger every day is one of the most evidence-based, simple, affordable things you can do to shift all of those internal conditions in a favorable direction. There is one more skin-related mechanism worth understanding: ginger and circulation. One of the lesser discussed causes of dull, uneven skin tone as we age is a gradual decline in microcirculation, the tiny network of capillaries that deliver oxygen and nutrients to the skin's surface layers. When microcirculation slows, skin can look gray, flat, and tired even on days when you are feeling perfectly well. Ginger has a well-documented warming effect. You feel it on your tongue, and this warming action reflects a real physiological mechanism. Ginger compounds are vasodilatory, meaning they cause small blood vessels to relax and widen slightly, increasing blood flow to peripheral tissues including the skin. This is part of why traditional medicine systems around the world use ginger topically and internally for circulation. A study measuring peripheral blood flow in subjects who consumed ginger extract found statistically significant increases in skin surface temperature and blood flow compared to placebo, which in practical terms means the skin was receiving more oxygen, more nutrients, and more of the cellular machinery needed for repair and renewal. That glow that people describe when they talk about eating well, some of it is very literally this: better blood reaching the surface. Now, having built all of this science, let me bring it down to the most practical level possible, because knowing what ginger does is only useful if you know how to actually bring it into your life in a way that the research supports. The first thing to say is that more is not always better, and the form of ginger you use matters more than most people realize. Fresh ginger root and dried powdered ginger are not identical in their chemistry. When ginger is dried and heated, the gingerols partially convert into shogales, and shogales are actually more potent in some of their anti-inflammatory and antioxidant actions than their fresh counterparts. This means that dried ginger powder, which is cheap, shelf-stable, and easy to add to countless foods, is in some ways more pharmacologically active than fresh ginger. That said, fresh ginger has its own advantages, particularly for gut motility and digestive effects. Ideally, you use both. The clinical trials showing the most impressive results for joint pain use standardized ginger extract in capsule form at doses ranging from 255 mg to 1 gram daily, typically taken with food to reduce the mild gastric irritation that some people experience on an empty stomach. For general daily wellness, dietary amounts, meaning a teaspoon of fresh grated ginger in tea, a half teaspoon of dried powder in cooking, or a high-quality ginger supplement, are a reasonable and evidence-consistent approach. You do not need to be drinking pints of ginger juice or taking heroic doses. The research suggests that consistency over time matters far more than intensity on any given day. A small amount of ginger, every single day, shifts your inflammatory baseline slowly but genuinely. It is a marathon, not a sprint, and the body rewards that kind of consistent, gentle intervention. Some practical ideas: steep a 1-inch piece of fresh ginger, sliced thin, in hot water for 10 minutes with a little lemon and a very small amount of raw honey. This is one of the most effective and pleasant delivery mechanisms and takes about 3 minutes to make. Add half a teaspoon of ground ginger to your morning oatmeal or yogurt. You will barely taste it, but it will be working. Grate fresh ginger into salad dressings, over roasted vegetables, into smoothies. And if you genuinely do not enjoy the taste or the heat of ginger, a standardized extract capsule from a reputable supplement company is a perfectly valid option. Look for products standardized to 5% gingerols, which is the benchmark used in most of the clinical research. Now, I want to be honest with you about who should be thoughtful about this, because responsible information means telling you both the good and the cautious. Ginger is remarkably safe at dietary and moderate supplemental doses. Thousands of years of use and modern toxicology studies both support this. But there are situations where a conversation with your doctor is genuinely important before adding significant amounts. If you take blood-thinning medications, warfarin, aspirin at therapeutic doses, or newer anticoagulants, ginger has mild antiplatelet effects that could compound the blood-thinning action, and while the risk at dietary doses is low, it is worth mentioning to your physician. If you have gallstones, high doses of ginger can stimulate bile flow and potentially cause discomfort. If you are pregnant, dietary ginger is generally considered safe and is often recommended for morning sickness, but high-dose supplements in pregnancy are a conversation for your midwife or obstetrician. And if you are managing a condition where your gut is already highly inflamed, Crohn's disease, active ulcers, introduce ginger slowly and pay attention to how your body responds. These cautions are not reasons to fear ginger, they are reasons to respect it. Something that is biologically active enough to reduce joint pain in 63% of arthritis patients is something that your body genuinely responds to, and anything your body genuinely responds to deserves a thoughtful approach. If you have been watching this entire video, I hope what you are feeling right now is not overwhelmed but genuinely curious, maybe even a little hopeful. Because the story of ginger is ultimately a story about the extraordinary intelligence built into plants, accumulated over millions of years of coevolution with animals and humans, and the equally extraordinary intelligence of the human body, which knows how to receive those signals and translate them into real biological change. The ancients did not have randomized controlled trials, they did not have mass spectrometry or gene expression analysis, but they had thousands of years of careful observation, and what they observed about ginger: that it reduced pain, improved mobility, brightened the skin, calmed the gut, turns out to be something modern molecular science is validating in meticulous detail. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food," and every year, every new study on ginger, every 63% pain reduction in an arthritis trial, every measurement of collagen gene expression in a skin cell, is another quiet confirmation that he was onto something profound. There is a Sanskrit proverb from the Ayurvedic tradition, one of the oldest medical systems on earth, that translates roughly to, "Everything you need to heal yourself is already close to you." I find that thought genuinely moving when I hold a piece of ginger in my hand, this gnarled, knobbly little root that has been part of human health for 5,000 years, that costs almost nothing, that you can grow in a pot on a windowsill, and that modern science keeps confirming, paper after paper, was never just a spice. So here is what I want to leave you with. Next time you open your kitchen drawer and see that little knob of ginger sitting there, I hope you see it differently, not as a flavoring, not as something you bought for one recipe and keep meaning to use. See it for what it actually is, one of the most studied, most consistently validated, most biologically active foods on earth, one that your skin and your joints and your gut are already equipped to respond to, waiting for you to make the simple choice to offer it to them every single day. If this video gave you something to think about, or if you have a personal experience with ginger, whether you started using it for joint pain, for your skin, for digestion, or just because you love the taste, tell me in the comments. I read them, and your stories genuinely shape the direction of future videos on this channel. And if someone in your life is dealing with stiff joints or dull, tired skin and has never thought about the simple, inexpensive power of what is already in their kitchen, share this video with them. Sometimes the most generous thing we can do is share a piece of knowledge that costs nothing to give and might quietly change everything.